All right. Now let's go. Let's do it. All right. Does this picture look familiar?
Yes.
Yes. This picture's a friend of ours. Well, this is a picture where we cut out a window through the frontal pericardium to look at the heart and the great vessels that come off the base. So this would be the ascending aorta. This would be the arch. So what would this vessel be right here?
That's going to be the mammary, the right, no. But yeah.
All right, look here.
Brachiocephalic.
Brachiocephalic, right. This is the first branch off the aortic arch. So this is the brachiocephalic. What would this branch off the brachiocephalic be alongside the trachea here? Right, that's on the right side. You have the patient's right. The right common carotid artery. Okay. Whereas the left common carotid artery on the other side of the trachea comes off independently from the arch. Okay, so this is the right and left common carotid artery. If we look closely, we can see the subclavian here. Well, it's passing over the first rib, and it's not shown here, but it'll pass below the clavicle. You know, there's a condition called thoracic outlet syndrome, where the subclavian gets trapped between the first rib and the clavicle. It gets pinched, compressed. Now, the brachiocephalic also gives rise to the right subclavian here. We also see, what is this vessel here? This blue vessel? What is it? This blue one? Say it, Hunter. It's a safe zone. But
Does the pulmonary zone?
no, this would be the pulmonary trunk. This is a bad picture. This would be superior vena cava.
Okay.
It's emptying into the right atrium. Now, notice that there are two vessels that join together to form the superior vena cava. These are called the right and left brachiocephalic veins. The reason we say right and left is because there's two of them. Okay? So when we talk about the brachiocephalic veins, we'll use right and left. But when we talk about the brachiocephalic artery, because there's only one, we don't use that description. So don't ever say right brachiocephalic artery. There's just one. All right. Here's a nice picture where we show the brachiocephalic artery coming up, and it's bifurcating into the right common carotid and the right subclavian. Now the subclavian is passing deep to the clavicle, but above the first rib. Now, that common carotid, as it comes up, it bifurcates. Bifurcates into an internal and external carotid artery. On the practical, always notate right versus left. And remember, you're dealing with the patient's right, not yours. So, common carotid comes off the brachiocephalic trunk, so does the right subclavian. What is this vessel? It's coming down behind the chest wall.
Mammary.
The right internal mammary artery. Whereas this one here, look what it's doing. It's passing through the transverse foramina. That's got to be the vertebral artery. And here's a neck dissection. In the neck dissection, you expose all these vessels and structures. Remember I said that, all right, this is the larynx. I said right along the superior aspect of the larynx here is where the common carotid bifurcates. Okay? So this is a little bulb here at the base of the internal carotid. So tell me, this is the internal carotid. And then this is the external carotid. Look, it's giving off branches to the head and neck here, to the face, to the scalp. Whereas the internal carotid is passing through this little opening at the base of the brain called what? The carotid canal. Yeah, and that's going to travel up to the base of the brain. The vertebral artery on this side, look what it does. It passes through the transverse foramen of C1, then it's going to pass through the foramen magnum here. So this is the foramen magnum. Then the right and the left vertebral join together to form the basilar artery. It runs along the base of the brainstem. Yes?
If you fracture your clavicle, is there a chance you can puncture the artery?
There is. There
Does
is.
that happen a lot?
Doesn't happen often, no, because, lots of people fracture their clavicles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but rarely do you puncture a vessel, but you can, you can. I have a question, Brittany, does any of this seem familiar at all? Huh? What I'm talking about right now? No? Okay, because when we talked about strokes and TIAs, okay, remember in neuroscience, we said that there's an anterior middle cerebral and a posterior cerebral, okay? And the anterior middle cerebral come off the carotid. The posterior cerebral was part of the vertebral basal circulation. That's what we're talking about right now. You were zoned out. Okay.
Isn't that what a stroke affects and you
Well, that's the most common, but it can affect other branches. It can affect the anterior or the posterior too. But the middle cerebral is the most common. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're taking the brain and we're turning it upside down so you can see its base. And here, okay, this is where the spinal cord passes through the foramen magnum and becomes the brainstem. So we have the medulla oblongata, the pons here, the midbrain's going to be right here. Well, the vertebrals are traveling along the medulla, and they join together at the pons to form the basilar artery. That's what that is. Now, the basilar artery, okay, continues along the pons until its junction with the midbrain. Then what it's going to do, it's going to bifurcate. Okay, this would be the right posterior cerebral, and then on this side you'll have a left posterior cerebral artery. So the way that the basilar artery terminates is by bifurcating into a right and left posterior cerebral artery. Okay, what they're showing here is the occipital lobe being fed by the right posterior cerebral artery. Here they put the cerebellum in, the internal side. Okay, to show you also that this system here is also feeding the cerebellum. Now, we call the vertebral arteries the basilar artery, and all of its branches, including the posterior cerebrals, in general, they're referred to as the vertebral basilar circulation. Another term for the vertebral basilar circulation, the vertebral arteries, the basilar artery, and their branches, is the posterior circulation, because it represents the posterior circulation to the brain. Okay? Whereas here's the carotids that we cut off here, but they're coming up like this, and like this. And the carotids reach the base of the brain. They bifurcate into the middle cerebral artery, which extends to the lateral wall here, and the anterior cerebral artery, which travels along the medial aspect of the frontal lobe. Okay? So the anterior and middle cerebral arteries, as well as the carotids, are referred to as either the carotid circulation or the anterior circulation of the brain. So just as the vertebrals are coming up to the base of the brain, so does the carotid. And these vessels, the two carotids and the two vertebrals, provide all of the blood flow to the brain. Now, there are little connecting branches here. Connecting on either side the posterior cerebral artery to the internal carotid is called a posterior communicating artery. So you have a right and left posterior communicating artery. Okay. And then connecting the two anterior cerebrals here is a single anterior communicating artery. The purpose of these communicating arteries is to create a circle of blood flow along the base of the brain. We call this circle of blood flow the circle of
Willis.
What you talking about? Willis. The circle of Willis. When I say, what you talking about, do y'all know what I'm referring to?
Willis?
Yeah, Willis. Come here, Strokes. This is a diagram of the circle of Willis up here. Okay. What we're showing here is the vertebrals coming up from the subclavians. They join together, form the femur, and bifurcates into the two posterior cerebral arteries. This posterior communicating connects the posterior circulation to the anterior circulation. It connects the posterior cerebral to the internal carotid on either side. Now, the internal carotid, when it comes up like this, it gives rise to a middle cerebral and an anterior cerebral on each side. The anterior cerebrals are connected by a communicating artery, an anterior communicating artery. So as a result of those additional communicating vessels, we form a circle of blood flow around the base of the brain. Do you think this is a good thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. This circle of blood flow provides for what's called collateral blood flow. Collateral blood flow refers to an alternative route of blood flow with oxygen to a region. For example, normally this right internal carotid artery is going to feed the right hemisphere, at least the parts that are supplied by the anterior middle cerebral artery. Okay? And if in fact you have a thrombus that forms within the right internal carotid artery, that thrombus would block blood flow to most of that right hemisphere. You could potentially have a massive stroke because no blood flows getting to the tissue. But if you have an intact circle, when this vessel is occluded, blood can flow up from the opposite side, pass around the circle, and provide an alternative route to that territory previously supplied by the right internal carotid. So the circle of Willis is going to provide collateral blood flow. Does that mean you won't have a stroke? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes it will prevent a stroke. Other times, it will turn a massive stroke into a less massive stroke. Because instead of that territory being completely deprived of blood flow with oxygen, it still receives some blood flow and oxygen from the opposite side through the circle. So this is God's way of protecting us. Now, you'll need to be able to draw the circle of Willis because it's such an important entity. So that's a very, very important thing there, that circle of Willis. Here's the funny thing. You know, I know I've talked a little over an hour, and we've mentioned a lot of vessels, and I'm sure at this point in time, if this is the first exposure, this seems like a daunting task to memorize all these vessels. But what's amazing is that when you go over it again and again, you see it again and again, either through the same course and or different courses, all of a sudden you're not even memorizing it anymore. You've seen it and identified it so many times that it's like seeing Sarah, okay? The first day I met Sarah, I had to memorize her name. Okay, I put a little notation in my book where she was sitting. She wasn't sitting there, she was sitting back there. And I put a little picture of her, because I like to draw. So I put a little picture of her, okay, in my book so I could remember who she was. Now, this semester, do you think I went through all that? No, because I've seen her so many times now that I haven't even tried to memorize it. Okay, I got you down.
Thanks.
Okay.
Are you second me yet?
What's that? No, it's a pleasure having you in the class.
So do you still have this picture that you drew, Sarah?
I have it in my old book, yeah. It's very becoming. Well, some of you, like if you sit right up front, I just put your name, okay? Whereas if I have like two people who have the same color hair and they're in the back, I'll try to draw a little picture of them. Okay, like
So does
that.
that mean that you drew a picture of me and
Oh,
Sarah?
Yeah, so I can differentiate the two, right. And then what you do is like it's over the first 2 weeks that you put little descriptive terms, you know?
So
Like-
is that why that they're your favorites? Because you drew them, so you remember them better than everything else?
Now, I didn't say they were my favorites. But I will tell you this, people tend to think that I play favorites, but the truth is that all teachers like good students that put in the work and learn the material. So if you put in all that kind of, yeah, it's going to seem like I favor you, okay? But the truth is all teachers like students who do their due diligence. But we have a good class this semester. This is like, without formally being recognized as the honors class, this is kind of the honors class, okay? I don't go back and repeat that to anybody, okay? All right, we said that with regard to the subclavian, as it passes below the clavicle, it becomes the axillary. Then, when it passes alongside the humerus, when it enters into the arm, its name changes into the brachial artery. Notice that along the antecubital fossa, the brachial artery bifurcates. Radial, ulnar, that's easy. One branch passes along the radial aspect, the other along the ulnar aspect of the arm. And then when they reach the wrist, these two vessels join through two different little loops here. One's called the superficial palmar arch, the other's the deep palmar arch. Okay? All of these digital arteries here tend to come off the superficial palmar arch. So you have like a first digital artery to the thumb, a second, third, fourth, and fifth. These are providing blood flow to the digits. They come off the superficial palmar arch.